One of the most perennial questions in teaching religion is the question of definition. And as a teacher, I have often asked my students to take their hand at defining religion. Then I realized that I don't really offer them a definition. Sometimes we discover one in a textbook we're using, and we reflect on it, we critique it. But I realized that in my own introducing of religion, I tend to describe what I call the dynamic of religion rather than to try to define religion. So let me say a couple of things about what that dynamic involves. It's a threefold dynamic. The first dimension of it, the first aspect of it, is what we might call an experience or an encounter with the ultimate reality, with the holy, with the sacred, with that dimension of the more. We might name that which is the subject of the encounter or the experience in a variety of different ways. Religious traditions have named that reality of the ultimate, the holy, the sacred, in a variety of ways. Some of them personal, some of them not personal. But at the very core of the dynamic of religion is this experience of a reality that impinges on us in some way, that we encounter. And it is that reality that is the very core not only of the origin of religious traditions as we know them, but somewhere at the very heart of the individual's experience of religion. It is this encounter with the holy, this encounter with the ultimate reality, this coming up against it, that is at that first movement of the dynamic. The second is the idea of transforming response. And so if the first part is the experience of that reality of ultimacy, the second movement is a response with one's life. Not only with one's thought, not only, oh, that was a good idea, but a transformation of the person in light of that very foundational experience, that encounter which transforms, which changes not only things, not only perspective, but changes the individual as well. So when I talk about transforming response, I'm talking about that movement of saying yes to that experience, yes to that encounter. We might use language like the language of faith to name, at least in one way of speaking of it, what that transforming response is. The third movement, and I'll kind of trace my way back too, but the third movement is that of expression. The various ways in which we press out, and I take the word expression very literally here, press out what our experience of the ultimate is, what our experience of the holy is. And we do that pressing out in language, we do that pressing out in action, we do it in the way in which we form ourselves as communities. So those expressions can be verbal, they can be active, they can be social. When I speak of verbal, I'm probably speaking of the most obvious. Though when we talk about the ultimate reality, we often say it is ineffable, it can't be explained, can't be talked about. We talk about it nevertheless in a great length. And so we tell stories. We collect those stories in Scripture. We formulate creeds. And we repeat those creeds as an affirmation of what it is that we hold to be true, what it is that we believe. But it is not only in words that we express our response to that which is holy, to that which is sacred. It is also in our actions. Not only in the action of ritual or celebration or prayer or meditation, but also in the action of our lives. And so the living of an ethical life, the codes by which we live that life, the values which inform that life, are part of that expression as well. And then the ways in which we organize communities, the models that we see for the way in which community should be, is the final expression of religion, the social expression. Now, talking about this in one way might seem very heady, very abstract, but if you think about it for a moment, that movement from experience or encounter with the ultimate or holy to the transforming response and then to the expressions actually gives us a way to understand the way in which religions originate. And so we're describing that process by which they come to be. So an individual or a group of individuals have an encounter, an experience that transforms them, and they in turn press that out and express it verbally in action in the way in which they constitute themselves as a community, how they live together. And in so doing, they pass on the insight and the passion that marks their own response, their saying yes. Think as an example of this to the community of those who were followers of the Buddha or the followers of Jesus and the early Christians. Now, if you think for a moment, just one other thought about this, you realize that that dynamic also describes something of the individual's experience, namely an experience that transforms me in the way in which I see the world, the way in which I see myself, and my desire then to press it out. But it doesn't always happen in that order. And so my first individual experience might actually be to come into that phenomenon of religion, not with an experience that's outstanding, but by encountering, by participating in the expressions. I hear the story. I come to celebrate the rituals. I observe the ways in which people live out their religious commitment. And then those expressions, words, actions, the community itself, may be the media by which I come to experience for myself an encounter with the holy and the sacred in my life.